Hello, radiant soul of Leo. Something terrible is unfolding behind the scenes, and though it's not your doing, your light has set it in motion. Those who once tried to suppress your truth, dim your energy, and hold you hostage in invisible ways are now breaking. And they're not just losing peace or pride. They're losing everything. Some are crying, not in regret but in agony. In a spiritual hell of their own making. You didn't come to this video by chance. You were drawn here because your energy field is shifting. You're shedding illusion, and the universe is responding with equal force. The moment your soul said, "Enough," a divine sequence began. And now, justice is no longer a concept, it's alive, moving, and unavoidable. You've been sensing it, haven't you? The strange dreams. The tension in the room when certain names are mentioned. That tightening in your gut that tells you someone is still thinking about you, watching you from the shadows. These aren't random sensations. They're signals. Confirmation. The karmic debt they tried to place on your shoulders has boomeranged back to them. And it's heavier than they ever imagined. Let this video be a mirror, Leo, not for who you were, but for who you're becoming. Because you're not the victim anymore. You are not the too much or too sensitive or too emotional one they claimed you were. You are fire. You are clarity. And what's about to happen is not a curse. It's a cosmic consequence. Your presence here right now is proof that you've already begun the process of becoming untouchable, not through resistance, but through radiance. You've detached from what once poisoned your spirit. And when Leo lets go of the drama, the whole stage collapses. That's exactly what's happening now. But I want to take a moment just to netto say thank you. Your presence here means more than you know. Every like, every comment, every subscription you offer isn't just a number. It's an act of energy alignment. It tells the universe that you're ready. Ready to live in light. Ready to be surrounded by truth. And ready to rise with others who are doing the same. You're helping grow a soul-centered community here at Eternal Mindfulness. And because of that, we're able to keep delivering the kind of messages that don't just entertain, they transform. Now, stay with me until the very end of this video, because what the universe is revealing today is more than a prediction. It's a moment of reckoning. A spiritual turning point. And Leo, yes, you are standing right at the center of it. Before we go any further, I want you to affirm this for yourself in the comments below. Write it out. Anchor it in. I am the light. I am no longer controlled. It's not just a sentence, it's a declaration. One that will open energetic doors you didn't even know were closed. Now take a deep breath. Feel your chest rise with confidence. Because what comes next is not just the truth. It's liberation. It always begins with a flicker, something small, almost imperceptible, like a knowing glance that lingers too long or a sudden shiver when nothing has changed. And yet, something has changed. The moment you chose not to dim yourself anymore, the moment you stopped excusing what you always felt but couldn't quite prove, that's when the sun began to rise inside you. And when the sun rises, Leo, it doesn't just warm, it reveals. In astrology, the sun governs not only your identity but your conscious will, your right to exist fully, boldly, and truthfully. Its appearance at this exact point in your reading is not a compliment. It is a command. A luminous force calling you to stop apologizing for your presence and begin aligning with the version of you that has always been waiting beneath the surface. Not the role you were trained to play, not the mask you wore to be accepted, but your true self, the one with unfiltered clarity and unapologetic truth in your bones. The people around you may not have changed. Their words may still sound soft, their gestures polite, their intentions reasonable. But the energy? You've begun to feel its weight. Like velvet hiding daggers. Like smoke that tries to mimic incense but stings your eyes. You're no longer confused by contradictions because the sun within you no longer allows illusion to survive. This is not a punishment, it's a purification. You see, there's a quiet wisdom in understanding that not everything painful is harmful. Sometimes, pain comes as a teacher. The way fire purifies metal, the way light sears away fog, some truths must burn in order to set you free. And the sun, your ruler, does not whisper. It blazes. Its light is not gentle, but it is just. And now, it's shining on what you once tolerated, what you once silenced within yourself to keep the peace. But Leo, true peace has never been the absence of conflict. It is the presence of truth. You are being asked now to stand at the edge of who you used to be and choose: will you step back into the shadow of what's comfortable, or forward into the brilliance of who you really are, even if it blinds those who can't stand your clarity? This moment is not only yours. It ripples outward. Every lie that falls away, every half-hearted connection you release, creates space for something aligned. Something real. And though it might feel like you're losing people or places, what you're really losing is the illusion of safety. What remains is truth. What's forming is trust in yourself, in your vision, in the life that's finally rising to meet your worth. In ancient teachings, there's a reminder that the lotus doesn't bloom in clear water. It rises through mud slowly, steadily, unwavering. The sun in your reading is your lotus breaking the surface. You are no longer becoming. You are. The number 1, echoing through your numerology now, is not about ego. It is about emergence. You're not leading others from superiority but from example. The way you burn away what's false becomes a torch for others. Without even trying, you're showing people what it looks like to walk in truth, to live in coherence. That is leadership. That is power. That is Leo. So let what needs to burn, burn. Let the masks melt. Let the truth sear if it must. Because once it passes through the flame, only the sacred remains. And that sacred light, it's you. There is a moment in every journey where the walls that once seemed solid begin to tremble, not because you shook them, but because they could no longer contain what was false. That's what the tower represents. Not punishment. Not chaos for the sake of pain. But the crumbling of illusions that have overstayed their welcome. And when the energy no longer supports the structure, collapse is not only natural, it's necessary. What you're witnessing now, Leo, isn't something you caused. You didn't push. You didn't strike. But your growth has become the silent force that makes the old unsustainable. Someone who once controlled you not always through obvious means, but through guilt, manipulation, or subtle dismissal is now coming undone. And it's not because you wished them harm. It's because the foundation they built their power on was never real to begin with. When you began to reclaim your worth, their narrative fractured. When you stopped responding, their control lost oxygen. And now, the life they built around keeping you small is collapsing one sleepless night, one panicked thought, one unexplained setback at a time. You may hear of illnesses that don't make sense. Financial ruin. Mental unraveling. And in some cases, a complete loss of identity. That may sound cruel, but it's not vengeance. It's balance. Life, in its deeper wisdom, has a way of correcting imbalance not out of wrath, but from a cosmic sense of proportion. And often, that correction begins where deception has lived too long. But you don't need to watch this fall. You don't need to check their pages or wait for karma like a show. That's not your role anymore. What's happening now is far more sacred than drama. It's a rebalancing of energy that you're no longer part of. You've stepped off that wheel. There's a concept often spoken of where the fruit falls when it's ripe, not when it's forced. And sometimes, it falls because it has rotted from the inside. The tower shows us that not all collapses are tragedies. Some are long overdue endings disguised as crisis. What looks like destruction is often a delayed truth finally demanding room to breathe. And when that truth arrives, no lie can stand. The more light you embody, the harder it becomes for those who've hidden behind shadows to stand next to you. Your clarity is their discomfort not because you're harming them, but because your very presence unmasks what they've been running from. This is not something to feel guilty about. You didn't ask to expose anyone. You simply stopped dimming your light. And when you did, their disguise no longer held. There's a deep lesson here: not everything that falls apart is a failure. Sometimes it's a release. Sometimes the ending of what's crumbling around you is the final echo of a chapter you've already finished in your heart. You don't have to grieve what's collapsing if you've already outgrown it. Walk forward now with grace. Let the ruins lie where they fall. You've earned your exit. Your only responsibility is to keep choosing clarity, truth, and self-respect. The tower is not your enemy, it is your liberation disguised as wreckage. Let it clear the ground for what's finally meant to grow. And if part of you still feels shaken by what's unfolding, return to this truth: what is breaking down is not yours to hold. What is breaking apart was never truly stable to begin with. Let it fall. And as it does, feel the lightness that returns to your own spirit. You are not the collapse. You are the one who walked away before it came. And now, you are free. What rises from within you now is not pride, it is peace. Not the kind of peace that asks you to keep silent or step aside, but the kind that is born when you finally understand that you never needed to prove your worth. The strength card in your reading does not speak to physical power, nor to force. It speaks to the quiet, unwavering courage that comes from facing what once frightened you, and choosing not to fight it but to outgrow it. And that is exactly what you've done, Leo. This is not the strength of domination. This is the strength of release. You've reached a point where you don't need to argue anymore. You don't need to expose the lies or defend the truth. Why? Because truth, when it is aligned with clarity, reveals itself. And now it is. Slowly, loudly, and unmistakably. Judgment has arrived not in fury, but in resonance. A return of frequency. a mirror turned outward. And those who once projected blame, deceit, and manipulation onto you are now being met with their own reflections. Not because you demanded it, but because universal law requires balance. When you stopped responding, the game ended. You may have been mocked for your silence, misunderstood in your stillness. But this stillness was not emptiness. It was preparation. It was you stepping away from the noise, so that the noise could echo on its own. And now it has. What's happening is not about revenge, it is about truth coming full circle. And you? You're standing on the other side of that circle, not with vengeance in your heart, but with understanding in your eyes. This is the essence of what some call right action, choosing not to react in ways that perpetuate suffering, but instead, allowing clarity to become your compass. What returns to others now is simply what was never yours to carry in the first place. And it may look dramatic from the outside, secrets revealed, reputations collapsing, connections breaking, but for you, it's quiet. It's grounded. It's the confirmation that your inner work is working. The Strength card paired with Judgment signals a sacred crossroads. One path leads back to the old cycle, the familiar arguments, the emotional tug-of-war. The other leads to a clean, quiet liberation. And the power is yours. What makes this moment so beautiful is that you don't have to choose loudly. You don't even have to announce it. You simply align with it and your world adjusts accordingly. In ancient wisdom, it's said that the true warrior is not one who defeats their enemies, but one who defeats their need for enemies. You've done that. You've reached a place where you no longer need to be right, you only need to be real. And from that space, life begins to reorganize around your authenticity. You're attracting a new reality now, not because you're forcing it, but because you're vibrating in harmony with it. You're stepping into conversations that feel safe, connections that feel mutual, and opportunities that honor who you've become. This is not luck. This is the result of choosing yourself, quietly and consistently. So if the world around you seems to be rearranging, if people are exiting, if truths are surfacing, if clarity is cracking through what was once murky, don't be alarmed. Don't mistake it for loss. It's alignment. It's the energetic response to your decision to stop shrinking. You are not a reaction anymore. You are a presence. And that presence now becomes your power. Let it lead the way. When your inner world begins to quiet and sharpen at the same time, when your body starts speaking in subtle signals before your mind can form the words, that's when you know something deep within you has awakened. This is not a skill you studied or a gift you borrowed, it's a remembering. The High Priestess appears now not as a mystery to be solved, but as a mirror for what you've always carried: inner knowing, quiet clarity, the ability to feel the truth before it is spoken. You are not imagining what you've been sensing. The patterns, the numbers, the sudden awareness of timing, they are not coincidences. They are a language the universe has always used, but now, you finally hear it. Seeing 111 or 444 is no longer about superstition. It's alignment. It's timing syncing with truth. It's the feeling in your chest when someone enters a room and your body knows what their presence holds before they open their mouth. This kind of intuitive perception doesn't make you different to be set apart, it makes you responsible. Responsible for noticing what others ignore. For staying still when the world rushes. For recognizing the energy behind the words, not just the sound they make. But with that awareness comes a sacred boundary. Not everyone is meant to walk with you into this new clarity. Some will return from the past, cloaked in sweetness, polished in regret. They will speak of change, of growth, of missing you. And while some of them may be telling the truth, others are only seeking warmth from the fire you've built without them. That's why your intuition is not just a feeling, it's a compass. One you can trust now more than ever. You don't need to defend your distance. You don't owe anyone a seat at your table just because they finally realize they lost you. Your light isn't just a glow, Anna Marie, it's a gate. And you are its keeper. Not from a place of ego, but from a place of discernment. You've cleared too much, released too deeply, grown too far to let old chaos slip in through the back door. This is where your softness meets your strength. Where your compassion is not an open door, but a discerning invitation. There's a simple truth that says when the water clears, it reflects everything. You are that water now. And the clarity you hold reflects the intentions of everyone who approaches. Trust that. Let it be enough. You don't need their reasons. You don't need to make space for their unfinished lessons. You are not here to carry what was never yours. You are here to walk in the wisdom you've earned. The High Priestess reminds us that the deepest power is often the quietest. That what is most real is not always visible. That intuition, when honored, becomes a sanctuary no one can infiltrate. You don't have to be loud to be protected. You don't have to explain your decisions to be valid. And you don't have to re-enter any cycle just because someone now regrets the damage they once dismissed. Stand still in your knowing. Let the signs continue to speak. Let the silence between moments become your teacher. Because you are not just becoming wise, you are walking wisdom. You are not waiting for permission, you are living in clarity. And the light you hold isn't just for you. It's for those who are still learning to see. But only if they are ready. Until then, your gate stays closed. And your spirit stays whole. There comes a moment, often after the storm has passed and the dust has settled, when you no longer recognize yourself in the best way possible. Not because you've become someone else, but because you've returned to the version of you that was always waiting to be remembered. This is what rebirth truly isn't, a flashy transformation, not a complete reset, but a quiet shedding of what was never truly yours. And now, Leo, you stand on the threshold of this renewal. The presence of the star, the Empress, the lovers, justice, the magician, and the world in your field isn't a coincidence. It's a confirmation. Each of these cards speaks to an aspect of you that has been activated through experience. The star brings forward the clarity that only emerges after darkness, the deep breath that follows release. It is hope not as wishful thinking, but as grounded knowing. You've earned your healing, not by pretending things were fine, but by sitting through the discomfort until the light found its way in. The Empress reveals that from your stillness, creativity is rising. You are no longer waiting for permission to bloom. You understand now that everything you touch through words, design, presence, or energy can become an offering. And you're being asked to create not to impress others, but to express yourself. What's born from your authenticity will naturally find its way to the right hearts. Just as the earth doesn't ask for applause to grow flowers, you don't need validation to become. With the lovers present, you are stepping into a new alignment, not just in romance, but in every relationship you hold. It's no longer about chemistry alone. It's about resonance, peace, depth. You are not drawn to noise anymore. You crave reflection, respect, and reciprocity. And for the first time, you're willing to walk away from anything less. That is a sign of true love for self, and for life. Justice reminds us that what was lost will be returned, not always in the same form, but in equivalent value. The balance that once felt off is finding its center. You are no longer overextending yourself, and the universe is no longer asking you to. You've paid your karmic debts through courage and silence, through boundaries and surrender. Now, the scales are leveling in your favor. The magician confirms that you already have the tools you need. You're not waiting for a sign. You are the sign. The clarity in your words, the strength in your convictions, the new rituals you've built into your days, these are your instruments of manifestation. You don't need more. You need only to believe that less interference equals more flow. You're the vessel. Stay open. And finally, the world closes the cycle. This is the chapter that doesn't end with a bang, but with a steady exhale. You're not chasing closure anymore. You've become it. This completion is both soft and seismic. It doesn't need announcement because it lives in your alignment. And as this new era begins, you carry not the weight of what was, but the lightness of what's next. Golden yellow, deep violet, and sapphire blues surround you now, not just as colors, but as frequencies. They invite wealth, clarity, and higher connection. Numbers like 911, 144, and 888 echo in your awareness, reminding you that you are on time, in rhythm, and fully supported. This is your integration point. You've risen from fire, not charred, but refined. And now, you get to live as the alchemist, not the one who escapes the pain, but the one who turns it into wisdom. You are not waiting for a miracle. You've become the space where miracles arrive. Leo, if you've made it this far, then something within you has already shifted. You may not have noticed it fully yet, but it's there, quiet and steady. The kind of shift that doesn't shout for attention but anchors itself deep into the roots of your soul. And from that place, your next chapter begins not as a reaction to pain, but as a conscious creation from clarity. What you've walked through has not broken you. It has refined you. And the truth is, you were never truly lost. You were simply remembering what it meant to walk in your own light without shrinking, apologizing, or needing anyone to confirm your worth. This journey has not been easy, but it has been yours. And because of that, it has been sacred. Now you stand here, not at the end of something, but at the beginning of something extraordinary. A moment when you no longer define yourself by what happened, but by how you chose to rise in the aftermath. And Leo, you didn't just survive, you illuminated the dark. You didn't wait for someone to give you permission to shine. You claimed it. So let me ask you this: what will you create now that the noise has fallen away? Who do you become when you no longer seek approval from people who never saw your full value? And what are you ready to receive, now that you've cleared the space where fear used to live? This is your opportunity to not just heal but to live from that healing. To move forward with trust in your own decisions, softness in your strength, and wholeness in your becoming. Don't let the past interrupt what's ready to flow in. You've already outgrown what used to hold you back. Now it's time to practice what you've remembered. You are the light. You are the fire they could not extinguish. If you felt something stir in you today, something you can't quite name, but deeply recognize, then don't let it pass quietly. Honor it. Declare it. And anchor it by leaving a comment below. Share your affirmation. Say it aloud. Write it out. Let the energy move through you. Tell me, what truth did this video awaken in you? What are you releasing and what are you claiming? And if even one sentence reached you in a way you didn't expect, I invite you to take a moment to give back. Like this video. Subscribe to Eternal Mindfulness, so we can continue walking this journey together. Every click, every comment, every gesture of energy you share keeps this space alive and helps others like you find their way home to themselves. Thank you from the deepest part of my heart for being here. Your presence is never taken for granted. You are the reason this message exists. Remember, no one else gets to define your destiny. That belongs to you now. You don't have to burn down old bridges, you simply have to walk beyond them. The fire you carry is not to destroy, it's to lead. And what's next for you is not just brighter. It's entirely yours. Until we meet again, stay close to the light within. Let it guide you. Let it protect you. Let it remind you that no matter how loud the past tries to echo, your future is already calling you by name. And I hope you'll answer it loudly, proudly, and on fire.